I am a mortician. Every morning I wake up before dawn. I go out into the yard, check my tools, close the door behind me, and I leave. I leave into the darkness, into the damp earth, into the cold of the gravestones and the silence. I am paid to keep the peace of those who should be dead, even if there is no one in the coffins. Yes, you heard right. I bury empty coffins. Every time. For 3 years now. The addresses come unsigned. Sometimes coordinates. Sometimes just a piece of paper in the mailbox. I don't ask. I don't think. I just dig. And then I sleep. And in these dreams, she, a woman with a face that I have never seen in reality, but I know her. I feel every detail, from the mole under her left eye to the trembling of her eyelashes when she smiles. We love each other, without words, without names. It's like we are connected. She is warm, quiet, strangely familiar. Once in one of my dreams, she said, "If you really love me, set me free." I woke up in a cold sweat, and on the table lay a new address. No stamp, no trace, just a white envelope and handwritten words. Set me free. It was an old cemetery, abandoned, covered in fog. I dug for hours. And when I put down the coffin, one of those that had been brought to me in advance, I heard a knock. I thought I was going crazy. But then she spoke. "You did it! You came for me!" I opened the coffin. She was lying there, just like in the dream. Only now she was real, alive, cold but breathing. At first I did not believe it. Then I accepted it. We left together. She lived with me, but only at night. During the day, she disappeared. Another dream? Or am I a dream? And then the killings began. A neighbor I'd known for 10 years hanged himself. An elderly security guard from the morgue, found dead with a shovel next to him. My fingerprints were on it. I didn't remember anything. But every night she stroked my hand and whispered, "You don't want to bury me again, do you? Bring me more." I began to notice empty coffins in the barn. They appeared on their own, with notes inside, with names, with faces that I was supposed to forget. I became an undertaker, not of the dead, but of the living, an executioner to order, in the name of love that does not exist outside of sleep. But the truth was worse. I didn't just bury them. I wanted them to die before my eyes. I wanted to see how their breath left them, how their eyes went dark, how their fingers scratched the wood of the coffin while I covered them with earth with a shovel. Sometimes, with a knife in my hands, with a bloody knife, I thrust it myself, slowly, coldly, as if in a trance, and then I watched the life go away, and only then did I close the lid. Sometimes I even left the lid ajar, just to watch longer. I looked into the eyes of those who already knew. They would not escape. I enjoyed this second, this transition between life and death. And at that moment, she appeared next to me. She looked at me with admiration, and she said, "You are the only one worthy of me. Your devotion is eternal." I began to hear her voice, even when I was alone. It was in the mirror, in the murmur of water, in the rustle of grass over fresh graves. Sometimes I woke up from my own laughter, shrill like that of a cornered animal. I talked to the bodies. I gave them names. I apologized when I cut them. I promised that they would become part of something bigger, something sacred. I began to believe that my shovel was a cross, and the knife was a key to another world. She started speaking louder, more demanding. She got angry if I hesitated. She threatened to leave if I refused. I was afraid of losing her, afraid of being alone again. I started seeing the faces of my victims in the windows. They were whispering, cried, laughed. One of them was my father. I killed him too, also at her request. And then I woke up in someone else's body, a young guy, 22, a student. In the room was a photo of that same woman. Only the photo was signed, "Mom, died in childbirth." I see her at night again, but now I'm not an undertaker. I'm next. I tried to resist, to burn the coffin, to board up the windows, to cut my ears so as not to hear her voice, but the voice was already inside. It's like a pulse, like breathing, like a part of me. And in one moment, I understood. I've never been alone. I'm not me. I'm a vessel, a carrier. She lived in me from the very beginning. I am her son. I am her love. I am her executioner. And when I buried others, I buried the remains of myself. And you know what the scariest thing is? When there was a knock in the room at night, it was the coffin, and it was knocking from the inside. Open up, son. I need a body. And I go, because I am her. A lot of time has passed since I began to feel her presence in me. I do not remember when it all began. It is strange, but I do not know how many days I spent in this abandoned house, where the walls are covered with mold and cracks like wrinkles on an old face, are silent about the years gone by. It is cold and dark here, but not as it should be. It is not just darkness. It is absorption. It is the absence of time, the absence of space, as if I were imprisoned in emptiness. Every day I feel how the world around me begins to break. These walls, this air, they are not real. I'm not real. In them, I'm not a person anymore. I'm a vessel, an empty vessel filled with her. I stop looking for answers because I already know that there are no answers. It all comes down to one thing. I am hers. I am her. This feeling of growing despair, when you can't remember who you were before all this began. With every look she gives, with every step she takes, with every breath she takes, I lose myself. But the paradox is that I can't hate her. I can't despise her. I adore her. I love her. I live only for her. Otherwise, I don't live. I'm dead. Do you know what's the scariest thing? I started seeing her in everything, in every reflection, in every movement. I look at myself in the mirror and I can't see my eyes. They've become her eyes. I can't remember when I first felt that look. It was always there, from the very beginning. I began to forget my face, to forget my body. I began to forget that I was once alive. Now I am not just an observer, I am an instrument. I am her weapon. Her voice sounds louder and louder in my head. It has become unbearably loud, like 1,000 voices screaming in unison. Sometimes it seems to me that I no longer exist. My essence dissolves like snow in the sun, and when I close my eyes, I do not see the darkness. I see her, she stands in the center, and her face is getting closer and closer. But the worst thing is that I feel her not only in my dreams. I begin to feel her in reality. I return to the house where I once lived. I open the door and I feel her presence. She is not just nearby. She is in every corner, in every nook and cranny of this house. She becomes part of everything I see and hear. And that's when I start to notice something else. She's not just watching, she's manipulating me. Then I think about the coffins, the ones I buried. I don't see them as lifeless boxes anymore. I see their eyes in them. I see their hands reaching out from inside me, trying to break free. These aren't just dead bodies. They're vessels, just like me. And they all want back what I took from them. Their screams, their voices, they echo in my mind, and I can't ignore them. In that moment, I realize I'm not burying the dead anymore. I'm burying myself. I'm not just killing people. I'm killing myself so that she can come alive in them, so that she can live in their deaths. They become a part of her, a part of me. And that's the only truth that exists. We are all an extension of her. We are all her children. She lives in us, in each of us. Every night when I close my eyes, I hear a knock, and I can no longer run away. I know that this knock is not because I am burying another coffin. It is her. She is knocking on my mind. She is knocking on my doors. She is knocking on my soul. I know that if I open this door, I will not return, but I cannot resist. I go. I am always going. I cannot not go. I can no longer feel anything. I go because this is her desire, and I fulfill it because I am hers. I can be no one else. I am her executioner, her slave, her descendant. I feel her hands reaching out to me as she squeezes me in her dark grip. And I, like once before, know I will not return, but now I am not afraid. I am waiting. I am waiting to be hers again, to become her memory, her shadow. And even if I open that door and step into the darkness, I will be with her. I will be hers. When the knock comes again, when that sound pierces my ears again, I will open the door and I will go because I am hers. I have always been hers. When I opened that door, there was nothing but darkness, sucking me in like a black hole. But I was not afraid. I had been waiting for this moment. I knew that at some point this moment would come. I knew that by stepping into the darkness, I would reconnect with her. I would become hers again, and I could not run. I could not hide, because I was hers. But when I crossed the threshold, I realized that this was not just darkness. This was the inevitable end. All those I had killed, all those I had buried, were standing here. I could see their faces. They were the same as when I buried them in the ground, when their last breaths filled my ears. But now they were not dead. They were living shadows, living memories, and all of them were looking at me. I saw their eyes, eyes full of fear, eyes full of pain, but they did not scream. They were silent. They watched as I slowly, step by step, became a part of their world. A world where there is neither life nor death. A world where time does not exist. A world where each of us reaches for the infinite. My hand reached for the knife. I had always had it. It was with me just like her. This knife was my tool, my salvation, my abyss. I realized that in the hands of this knife, I was not just killing. I myself was becoming death. I was becoming its driving force. And that's when I realized that this was not the end. This was a transition. It wasn't death, it was transformation. And every time I felt the blade of the knife in my hands, I knew that I destroy my soul so that it can live. I kill myself so that it can live again. I tear apart my human shell to become it, to become its embodiment. I felt the horror begin to grow inside me, but not the horror that comes from death. It was the horror that came from the realization that I wasn't just killing others. I was killing myself. I was the very monster I feared. I was the shadow that hid the light, and at the same time, I was the light that threatened to consume everything. I looked into the darkness, and her silhouette appeared before me. She stood among those I had killed, and her face glowed with an ominous light. She looked at me as if I were her own shadow. I felt her warmth, but it was not a comfortable warmth. It was a warmth full of fear and loneliness. It was a warmth that burned everything in its path. She came to me and held out her hand. I couldn't turn away. I couldn't leave. I was hers. I was hers. "You can't come back," she said quietly, but her voice sounded like thunder in empty space. "You're already mine. You've become a part of me. You can't be anything else." I felt my hand reaching out to hers, and it wasn't an act of will. It was automatic. It wasn't my decision. I couldn't think. I was in her arms. And when our fingers touched, I felt my soul falling apart. But it didn't hurt. It was liberation. I didn't know what awaited me. But at that moment, I understood that in this darkness, in this emptiness, there was no salvation. I couldn't run away. I couldn't hide. I became a part of her. I became her memory. I became her breath. I became her eternity. And now when you look at me, you also look into her eyes, because we are all hers. We are all her children. We are all her death. I stood before her as if before an ancient deity, incapable of resistance. My legs did not move. My eyes could not tear themselves away from her shadow, which consumed everything around. She was not just a woman. She was a terrible force that made me its vessel. I became its embodiment. I was the one she was waiting for to become her eternal prisoner. Her smile was sinister. She stepped towards me, her face almost touching mine, but there was no pity or compassion in her eyes. She looked at me as if I were her prey, her creation. "You cannot leave." Her voice was a whisper, but there was such power in it that I felt it penetrate every cell of my body. "You have already become a part of me. You are already my shadow, and you will stay with me forever." I tried to fight, but my body did not obey. I knew that I was no longer human. I was an empty vessel, and all that was left of me was an unquenchable shadow that would live in her world, in her eternity. But at that moment, when I felt that I was losing everything that had once been mine, I suddenly heard a knock. It was not the coffin that was knocking. It was something else, something familiar, something unusual. My gaze reached out into the dark void, and I saw him, the one I had killed. He stood there at the edge of the shadow, his eyes staring at me full of hatred. He was alive. He was real. I realized that she hadn't just used me to kill. She had manipulated everyone who had ever stood in her way, and I was no exception. With every knock, I felt the world crumble around me. She tried to take me into her arms, but I was no longer who she had made me. I was not alone. I was a composite of all those I had killed, all those who had been a part of my soul. And so, as I tried to take the last step towards her, as she reached out her hand to me again, I saw something new appear in her eyes. Fear. She hadn't expected this. She hadn't thought I could come back. I felt the shadow around me tearing apart. I had become a part of all those I had killed, and in that moment I realized that I was not her slave. I had become the one who could kill her. The knock came again. It was not just a knock, it was a scream, but not mine, and not hers. It was the scream of those she had destroyed. And now I knew that I was not just her shadow. I was her downfall. I was her end. When I looked at her face, I saw no fear. I saw emptiness, because everything she had created was destroyed. She never thought that her children would be able to escape. I took the last step forward, and in that moment, when my fingers touched her cold skin, everything disappeared. The world swallowed her. I remained, the one I had been before, the one who had never been, the one who now knows. We are all shadows, and one day, sooner or later, we will all leave, even she.